So funny. I can't believe we have to do it again. Third time, third strike. If we do it one more time, we're in absolute trouble. Okay, so Mel, we are here for our talk today for benefits of strength training for women. This is our second attempt. We seem to be on an absolute go with having to repeat ourselves because we're still not technically able, apparently. But yeah, so we'll go through everything we went through yesterday, and hope that our message and education is going to help women out there progress, understanding their bodies a lot more. And obviously the intention of the talk today is to share the benefits of strength training for women and why strength training should be included in and around your training programs every week or every month, and how you want to progress forward. So I think we'll just kick off with the first one that we outlined for ourselves, was what is strength training? How do we add it into what we're doing already, i.e. running, circuit training, yoga, and all of those things. So first and foremost, training, you can add in when you want, Mel, but first and foremost, strength training does not make you bulky, but everyone's thoughts of bulky differs depending on what you've learned before. The aim for us is to unlearn the bad myths and education you've heard and re-educate with science-proven knowledge. So when it comes down to strength training, it's recruiting more muscle fibers to build a stronger contraction and preserve the neuromuscular integrity. The more strength we have, the bigger and the better the contraction we have to build muscle and keep lean mass. So the way I broke it down when we were talking before, there's two ways kind of ultimately of thinking about it. There's so much information out there, so we'll just kind of do the overview so everyone can really understand it and keep it simplified. So one way of looking at it is lifestyle. So the strength training for lifestyle, and how we can then call it is functional fitness or functional strength training. So looking at your posture. If you're sat at a seat all day, how are your shoulders? How's your posture through your spine alignment? So also, when we get older, being functional at 70, being able to carry those heavy shopping bags or bags for yourselves and walking up those stairs, that is an element of strength training. And so we want to be able to set you up for life, to be able to go past your years. Maybe at 20 or 30, you're not thinking about it yet, but beyond, especially after 30 years old, our muscles start to deteriorate, especially with the female body. The more we're not putting any or doing any strength training, we lose that strength in not only muscle, but our bone density, our joints, they become weaker. So if you hear of more elderly people, for example, falling over, that's one of the highest rates of deaths with elderly people, is they don't have the strength to catch themselves when they're falling. And that still is relatable to now when we're falling over and we're rolling ankles and things like that. But the other side of it is the strength training really is a taboo in a way where it often scares women away. Strength training, they, like I mentioned before, they do feel that you get too bulky. But what we want, and with the strength training, is lifting heavy shit triggers the central nervous system. And it's one of the best ways to grow muscles and that lean mass, and an amazing way to reduce body fat. There is that perception and that balance of that body fat and muscle. And as women, we do carry more fat than men due to our biological makeup, and for us being built for childbearing. So yeah, Mal, do you have anything just to add on that? Because that's just two little elements, or two big elements for people to consider when strength training comes into it. So I know you've got other bits to add on to there.
Yeah, no, you did well. I think, like you said, it's one, but there are a lot of myths that kind of come along with strength training. And One of them is this idea that kind of imagery in society has put into us that strength training means that I have to go to a gym and I've got to pick up a barbell and load it up and do that. And I think that's where initially there is that little bit of pushback from some women, is it can be quite intimidating, especially if you feel unsure of what you're doing. And so if we're just talking kind of the basis now of just like the definition of strength training, it can be anything that provide some kind of resistance. So that can be body weight, it can be resistance bands, it can be anything. And as long as it's structured, and then there's certain movement patterns that kind of follow along with the strength training program. And so I think that's a good, like a little bit of a calmer like thing to say, instead of most of the images, which tend to be, and that's fine too, but women just hitting the gym and being like, oh, come on, like, that like intimidation factor. So, and on that as well, it's quite easy if you're already comfortable, like for you and me, it's very easy to talk about going to the gym, because I know from our past, if you haven't watched the other videos, but from our past, we've both been inside some kind of fitness or gym kind of area for a long time. So it's never really been anything where I've felt intimidated to go into a gym, and I know a lot about it. But there's definitely that empathy of some people that do have that kind of initial fear. And then, it's just basically anything that you can do to your body where you cause stress, and then it's that rebuilding phase, and then stress and rebuilding. You keep doing that, and as you're doing that, you're going to get stronger. You're going to get more powerful, faster. So it can be anything from a rehab. This is live in quarantine, people. And everyone is over here talking and making the dog bark. Anyways, Jesse, please go on. So it can be, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Where was the story?
That's okay. Gym goers and
it can be for rehab. So if you have, like to prevent injury, that's a big one, and that's a big reason in that postural. And definitely, like as we age, it's kind of a preventative measurement, but it also can be used to rehab if you've had an injury, or if you're having kind of niggles and pains and lower back pain or joint pain. You can look to strength training to improve that. It also is.
So these are the benefits, right? So this is I'm moving on to our second point, of your no, carry on. We're touching on that, so you might as well carry on. If we go into you're right. So if we go into like benefits of it, I mean, there's a whole slew of them, but like I just mentioned a couple. I mean, obviously, the more lean mass that you are carrying, that can affect positively your metabolism. So that's where people get into like, strength training is really good for fat loss. And a big part of that is because the more muscle mass that you're carrying, the more your body is actually, the metabolism is going to have to speed up to provide energy to the muscles. So you do create a higher metabolism. There's also what you said, kind of the osteoporosis and osteoarthritis. It helps prevent that by increasing bone density, strengthening up the ligaments, tendons, which take a little bit more time and a lot of accessory work to kind of build those up. And I think the biggest, we kind of talked about some other benefits outside of the physical side, is the physiological benefits. If you want to touch on those, I'll let you chat for a bit. I was just trying to chime in on when we were going to go over all the others. Like you said, reduce risk of injury. I think a big thing what we touched on yesterday was running, especially with the whole COVID-19, and we've seen a tremendous amount of people getting on the bikes or getting their trainers on and going for runs like they've never run before. But again, it comes down to, and we touched on obviously form and technique, just body weight is paramount. Most people can't do a lot of the basics great just in body weight, but for running essentially itself is not strengthening your muscles. So you want to have something that goes alongside in your program that strengthens through like your ankles to your knees to your hips, to make sure you've got that strength in those positions when you're pounding through the floor. So it's just strength training really helps, especially reduces the risk of injury. Also, like we've mentioned briefly, is like back pain and posture alignment, and having the strength training in there is essential in terms of building that base up, as well as improving physical strength and athletic performance. So if you have goals in the gym to do a push-up, that's strength training, that's body weight strength training. I think most people underestimate the power of actually being able to do a full push-up. And when we think about, everyone's like, why do I struggle? Why is this so hard? When you think, if you're weighing 50, if you're weighing 60, 70, 80 kg, and you're trying to push your body weight off the ground, you know, there's that misunderstatement of that. So the benefit is being able to do and perform well athletically, and that can be on all forms of running, to push-ups, to pull-ups, to wherever. Those are, some of them are quite advanced. Also in terms of enhancing your mood and reducing stress. So on the mental aspect of it, the strength training is proven and is amazing for that release there. I think you covered most of it, to be honest, Mel, on the rest of those benefits. But there's heaps, there's so many, and I think, like, obviously we could go on and on, but as a overall, improved fat loss, improves physical strength and athletic performance, prevents illnesses, like you touched on, in terms of, like, we can look at diabetes, osteoporosis, reduce risk of injury, back and pain and posture, as well as enhancing mood and reducing stress. I would say there's some top key of the benefits. Do you have anything else on those?
Yeah, I think so. Those are a lot of, like, the medical and health ones. And
yes.
Something we kind of forgot about too yesterday is there's also, like, a lot of people now, it's kind of becoming another side of, like, a pandemic, is diabetes. And I know, I mean, I work a little bit more in the pre and postnatal side of stuff, but a big factor of decreasing your risk for type 2 diabetes, gestational diabetes, is actually strength training, because you become more insulin sensitive, and without getting into all the sciencey stuff. So there's tons of, obviously we've listed tons of health aspects of it. I think then the other side of it is mental health, and that we kind of touched on it a bit. Like, I find it incredibly empowering to live in a world where we're always kind of that we're not good enough, or you're always fighting to look a certain way or act a certain way. And this is especially as a woman, that you can go somewhere and you can celebrate what your body is capable of, instead of always putting yourself down. And that's one aspect I think really takes people out of that mindset, and especially women who struggle with body image issues and kind of chronic dieting. It takes you out of that mentality of putting yourself down all the time. Instead, you get to celebrate all these small wins, and you get to yourself and feel like amazing to be able to watch yourself progress through certain stages of strength. There's that. And then, of course, too, I think we also are unfortunately in a world where a lot of the marketing pushes out these, like, workouts that are, you know, calorie blasting or super high intensity, and those are super stressful on the body as well, and are, like, cortisol levels and stress levels. And if strength training, which isn't as flashy and, you know, as marketable, I guess, is actually something that you can do if you are suffering from, like, a high stress, like high levels of chronic stress, that you can do to take care of your body, and it should make you feel better instead of actually making you feel worse. So that's a big issue I think a lot of people have, is we do live in a very high stress environment, especially here in Singapore. And then you add on, like, obviously all exercise is going to be a level of stress, but there's certain exercises that don't cause as much of that, like, stress effect.
100%.
And that's another one. And definitely too, for, like, women with hormonal issues already. So we're talking, like, PCOS, even going into perimenopause and menopause, postnatal, Hashimoto's, thyroid issues, which tends to affect women more than men. Well, obviously postnatal, but it's But the hormonal effects that you have from that are only affected even worse and more negatively the more of that high intensity kind of hit or really long cardio that most people go out and do, right? They think, oh, I need to just go running, and maybe they hit the 5K mark and they're like, well, I better do more to lose more weight. And that actually is quite bad on your adrenals, which are already affected a lot through those hormonal issues. So strength training is another aspect of strength training and walking. That's a great combo for women as well, and that's mainly because of that. So
no, definitely. I think just touching on what you I was gonna chime in, but I'll just let you finish. But even just with the mental side of it, I think or the way I see and feel and project it to my clients, and especially all the women out there, if you're feeling strong, if you're physically strong, that becomes in line with that mentality. So feel strong, think strong. Like, it doesn't change it overnight, and we know it's not quick fixes or anything like that, but starting to have that essence of really seeing that your body is capable of so much more, and you have that strength to do things for yourself that you normally rely on other people or maybe men or whatever it is. That strength training comes in handy. You can do things for yourself and you never think you or thought you could before. So I always think, just leaving on that one for that second point that we're covering, is feel strong, be strong, think strong, and I think just the other third one we touched on yesterday, or we started to talk about, was bulky. This word bulky, which I had a few messages before we jumped on the call, just saying, how do we define bulky, especially when we're talking women here, and the idea of putting muscle on is daunting to a lot of women, with the idea that they're going to become really hench and their muscles going to be everywhere and everything like that. But I think just looking at bulk as a term, I think it can be one you mentioned yesterday as well, in terms of body image. Who cares if this is if we're not talking about myself, thinking about myself, one, we're too quick to judge whether someone's bulky or not. We all have different perceptions of what bulky is. And I think when we look at the term bulky, if you look at the likes of Miss Olympia, when they are strength training, the amount of work and grind that goes into those bodies, especially for a woman to put on that amount of muscle, especially without any help of any steroids or anything like that, or even if it is, but that kind of bulk level is an ridiculous amount of work, not only just training, but the amount of food that you have to eat and fueling and everything they have to get to in that position. But I think it's just that slightest bit of worry. As soon as the body starts to getting a bit of muscle, there's that panic. It's like, oh, my shoulders are way too big. And it's that kind of like picking and choosing. I can't have too big shoulders. Let's just work on our bums and my leg and my core, it's like, let's stop doing this. But actually it's the misconception that you're not actually getting bulky, right? And trying to find that definition between bulky, lean, tone, reduce fat, like trying to find that ground of what someone means, because every individual is different. Where would you on that bulky side of things?
Well, I mean, not everyone is going to have heard our Instagram live, but from this standpoint, I hate the words. I really hate them. I get really upset when I hear anyone describing anything as like just bulky, or any kind of context of kind of talking about or critiquing anybody, not just a woman's body, men's body, anybody's body, is wrong, right? You don't need to judge, you don't need to critique other people. But as for, if you're looking, it's okay to look for, a certain type of training if you're looking to appear a certain way. And so I think I touched on it a little bit yesterday as well, but it's the first step is knowing kind of why you want to start strength training or just move in general. So why are you training? Are you only training because you're wanting to, you hate your body, you want to change the way you look, you want to train because you want to be able to not feel guilt and shame about what you're eating? Those are all really negative reasons to start any kind of training. And you're just going to be chasing your tail there, because you're never going to be happy. You're never going to be able to actually feel the benefits we've said, of strength training, because it's just not a good route. So, but if you're doing strength training, I think it's fine to go for those aesthetic goals. If it's coming from a place of love or a place of like where you're challenging your body to do new things, I think that's great. And in that sense, there are specific ways that you can train for various outcomes, and that goes hand in hand with nutrition. So
yeah, 100%.
Like you said, I think people need to be a lot more understanding and appreciative and loving of who they are as a person, and that we're all individual. We all have a different genetic makeup. What you're dealing with your skeletal shape, even your kind of musculature shape, even where you carry fat, where you don't carry fat, the shape of our bodies in general is a lot of that is very genetic. And so you can't change that. And everyone, is like not happy because they're not looking, like a specific thing they've seen in a magazine or on social media. But I think first, like, understand yourself and celebrate your own body and your own body shape. And then from there, you can, you can make, small changes. And I think manipulating your body through adding muscle size or adding strength is again, because there's so many other benefits medically as well, it is a great way, but you do have to know what your goal is. And if your goal is to have a little bit more of more muscle, if you want to be just as strong as I don't want to say more muscle, sorry. If you want to just be as strong as you can, like we're talking powerlifting, and you just want to challenge yourself to be able to deadlift, say 100 kilos or something. That programming is going to look a lot different. That eating habits are going to look a lot different than someone that's just coming in, maybe trying to lose a little bit of weight and just be healthy and happy. And, that's going to be different. And then on top of that, you've got people who are athletes in the sense of being fitness models or bodybuilders, and their training and their level of commitment and dedication and nutrition is going to be beyond anything, right? So exactly. I think there's a step where the general population is such a big part of who we see and the people that want information, but then the marketing side is the marketing towards the extremes, and that's not
100%.
No one to go into that extreme sense just to enjoy strength training. So bulky is, don't ever use that word, because we said bulky to Lizzie may be bulky different than bulky to me, maybe different than someone else. And so that's just a myth. There's no way even I don't want to say there's no way, but not a lot of women even carry the right hormonal package basically to even put on muscle that much. It takes a lot of time. So
I think that's so. You made those points are amazing, and I think it's one, bulky. You're judging someone on the way they look, and again, it's what we keep talking about. We're all guilty of it. I'm not innocent of never having not judged someone, for sure, but it's trying to catch yourself when we're saying these things or thinking these things, because everyone's been on a different journey. Everyone's had a different training or athletic background to everyone, and like you said, on the scale, it's trying to fit on where are you on that scale. Are you coming back from injury, and that's a form of strength training? You're starting to build your strength training up. Are you just here and there average gym goer, but you want to build some strength to be able to carry your shopping, or to think of it functionally and on a day-to-day basis of being able to make it up 5 flights of stairs and not really have too much of an issue with your breath? Or you want to take it to another level through your strength training and hypertrophy training, and obviously we can go into way more bits on that, and I think we'll go into more detail on another chat another time on the different types there. I think that'll be better. And then you obviously, like you said, you have your athletes, so they're a completely different scale of human being, and the way they build their muscle, they interact with their bodies, and the way they compete, and they do that for a living. Their living is to perform, and I think that's where the misconception, like you said, it's marketing is very good. Not for us necessarily, because we've got to learn to make our own decisions and have our own education. So don't just fall for the first thing that you see in terms of when it comes to training, or that certain workouts are going to get you abs, because more often than not, doesn't matter how often you repeat it, there's so many different variables that are going to get you there. And You just got to pick right on who's going to educate you to get you there. So I think just we'll wrap some of this bit up now in terms of takeaways. I know we've covered quite a lot today, so we'll keep it at that for everyone to digest. And we always, at the end of these ones, guys, we want to make sure you have takeaways, what you've learned from it. So please send us what you've learned, or comment when we drop it onto our profiles. But also have an action point of what you want to start doing moving forwards after this, because it's all well and good listening to information, but if you're never going to act on that information or make changes, then you're kind of defeating the object, right? So for me, for takeaways, is number one, if you don't know anything about strength training, and like we said, you should be incorporating it in one way or in another, depending on where you are on the scale. Hire a coach. Hire a coach, number one. It will save you so much time in the long run. Yes, it might be an investment up front with the cost, but that shouldn't matter when your health is at stake. Okay, so that'll save you bills in the long run. Make your health a priority. Strength training becomes part of that. Like we said, in terms of osteoporosis and I can never say that, I can't get that word out, and diabetes, it just stuns me every time. It can save you in the long run if you start investing in your health. If you cannot invest or you cannot afford a coach one-to-one in person, like Mel and myself, we do online coaching, and there's so many amazing coaches out there. So if you are looking for a different type of personality, make sure you match up your values with that coach, and it's okay to walk away from that coach if they're not serving you the best way they can. If you can't afford one anyway, we can go on to the Nike app. They do some really good videos in terms of strength training and how to perform. Another takeaway is a long journey. This has come up the last 3 weeks, and it'll come up every single week. It's a long journey. Strength training does not take 3 months to build the body of your dreams. It takes years. And I think until we start realizing that fact of that, the reality is it's a longer game, and to build that strength, like me and Mel, we've been doing it for a long time, and don't think short term. And then finally is repetition. So variability in training is very common and very popular, because you get too bored too easily, is what I hear all the time. And that's fine. You can do that if you know what goals or what you're going to achieve from that. But if you want to really see a change in body composition, strength training is really where it's going to be at. So looking at repetition in your programs, and that means, yes, 1 week or week 1 to week 4, you will be doing the same thing, because you're going to start doing progressive overload and seeing differences not only in your strength, but in also body composition. Mel, over to you.
Yeah, my first one I think was make moving well your priority when starting off kind of strength training. So that goes hand in hand. Actually, most of mine go right with yours. So you said, being patient, and it takes time. Being okay to keep things simple, right? So focus on building just a solid foundation, not just pushing through a movement with bad mobility because you want to be able to squat a certain number, whatever that may look like. Really peeling things back and being okay with that. And like we had mentioned yesterday, like we hopefully are going to be coming out of circuit breaker soon. And I know a lot of countries around us are coming out or have. And, you know, when you get back to the gym, I know we're all just like gunning to get back and get on a barbell, or get a barbell under us, for a lot of us at least. And you want to just go crazy. I think really dialing back and making sure that your coach is on board with that if you have one. And if you don't, just taking the step, and the last thing you want is to injure yourself the first week back. So making sure that the way you move is your priority in all things. That will just make you stronger in general and keep you out of the physio. And then next, well, even then we still get in the physio sometimes, right? But next is, I think, know your goal. So don't try to throw too much on your plate at once. So it's really common. Maybe I can't speak as much for men. I don't train as many men, but for women, to come in and say, well, I want to be able to do a push-up, I want to get stronger, and I want to lose weight, and I want, you know, to look a certain way. And they keep coming with all these lists. And when you break it down, it's like, well, to get stronger is going to look differently. Like if we're really talking about max strength, it's going to look a lot differently than if you're trying to lose, you know, 10 kilos or something. Yeah. So I think trying to just prioritize what your goal is. And I like to, obviously, you know, our message, I may be biased, but I like to push for a bit more of a performance goal versus a
100%.
goal. Yeah, I think it's, they go like the aesthetic is the kind of the side benefit of doing some of this other stuff maybe, you know, but it's so much to fight for a positive and like positive change. So I think that's kind of like looking at those capabilities. And yeah, my last one I think was just in general with strength training, I think it's to find you know, find a group, find a good coach that you trust, find a group of people that you trust, and that you are on board with. So it goes along with everything else. Like if you're not feeling right about the coach that you do have, or maybe the group of people maybe that you're training with or something, and things don't go right because either they're, you know, they're talking about all these myths that we're kind of debunking, or you know, it's all about your body and how it looks instead of some of the other kind of empowerment type things we talked about, then it's okay
for sure
to switch it up and find someone that aligns with your goals a little bit more and aligns with
definitely. And I think it's definitely important on the back of that is having a coach who's willing to listen to you, but also having that two-way communication where you have that feedback. And as a athlete or as someone who's training, you always need to be open for feedback and always be willing to do the basics, because top athletes are doing the basics every single day. Those basics and principles, like all your compound lifts, everything that builds you up, and that's why we repeat them, and that's why everyone's been doing them for years and years and years. So yeah, it's always been willing to learn as a beginner, no matter, like even me, we've got a lot of experience, but I'm open for people to say, actually, have you tried this? Have you done this? What about this? What are you doing? Because we're always constantly learning, and our bodies are changing, especially us as women as we get older and our muscle deteriorates. There's men as well who do deteriorate too, but just not at the same rate as women. But yeah, it's just trying to make sure we're open to feedback. Because I know when I get asked questions and then I give some truth, people aren't always open for that feedback. And you've got to be willing to learn, and you've got to be willing to actually adapt to it as well. But for me, just to finish on for the action, for anyone who hasn't, or any of you ladies who haven't started, don't be afraid to start. I think that's so powerful. I think the gym, yes, it can be daunting, but again, you've got likes of women like me and Mel, and we've got so many amazing female trainers and physios around us who are incredible. They really know their stuff, and there is a coach out there for you if you need to have that coach, or just walk into that gym, ask those questions that you need to ask, and don't be afraid of starting, because it is going to change your life. I can't I'd never look back. I don't want to know anything else, you know. So don't be afraid to start, ladies. Let's go get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think mine's very similar. Was you know, don't be afraid to start, and if you are afraid to start, really dig into why and what's holding you back, because like we've just sat here and talked for 30 minutes about all these amazing benefits, yet some people still you know, still are a bit shied away from it. So look at why, and if you're finding those reasons are because you're afraid of what it's going to do as far as aesthetics to your body, I'd say, you know, get off of the social media, kind of some of those Insta influencers, and do some real education, real research into it, and you'll probably find that a lot of what you're worried about isn't actually true. If you're worried about not knowing, you know, that kind of fear of like, when I go into the gym, I don't know what to do, or I feel out of place, you know, you can hire a personal trainer, you can hire an online coach, which is a little bit more economical if you want, you know, someone to just keep you accountable. there's lots of other options, or you just, find a group that you can go with together, because we're usually a little bit more confident in groups than we are by ourselves. That's not for everyone, but I know some people that can help. Or just reach out, like you had said, that a lot of people who are in this business, the good coaches, they are more than happy to answer questions if you have real questions, or open up that dialogue or have a conversation with you. I'd always take time out of my day to help someone out if they had real questions. And it just goes to, like, I think one point that we didn't say, but maybe is interesting to a lot of people, is you and I both have coaches as well. So even though we know so much about it, we still have people that we stay accountable to, and that can look at our training even from a different lens. So it's not just for beginners. Everyone, I think, can benefit from having a coach.
Top athletes have coaches, and I think that's the no-brainer. It's like, instead of saving money, putting money away for that hospital bill or something that's going to happen in the long run because your health deteriorates, focus on making yourself strong now. 100%. Like, we both have coaches. I've had a coach for a long time, or for as long as I've ever known. And it just means I learn 10 times more, and I learn quicker, and same with you. Cool. Okay. So we will wrap that up now. For everyone who's listened this long, can you make sure you leave us your takeaways, write down your takeaways and your action points, and send a message to me and Mel, or comment on our post. We would literally love to hear from you. And if you have any other questions and things you want us to cover, please send it through. Thank you.
Woohoo.